Hey everyone, welcome to the Fortress of Solitude podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Sergio Pereira, and today I'm joined by Loïs Qutob. So Loïs, how's it going today? And I'm pretty certain you're very excited for today, aren't you?
I'm like, this is the topic. This is the one.
Exactly. And for those of you who might not have read the little intro there on YouTube, today we're talking about Spider-Man, more specifically the Spider-Man movies. And Loïs is probably one of the biggest Spider-Man fans that I know. Am I correct there, Loïs?
Yeah, understatement. Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, you have everything. I mean, I've seen you've got that little Spider-Man to hold your PlayStation controller to, probably Spider-Man underwear. I'm guessing.
Shamelessly. I wear the thing with pride. I wear it on the outside of my pants.
Fantastic. Yeah, giving Superman a run there. Cool. So obviously there have been quite a few Spider-Man movies over the years, and there was in the 70s a Spider-Man series with Nicholas Hammond actually as Spider-Man.
That's my favorite.
That resulted. You're number one. Yeah, sure. Okay, we might as well just end this podcast right now. It's pointless.
Alert, that 1977 Spider-Man top.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, the Spider-Man existed there. A couple spin-off movies did come from it, but they were more like, condensed episodes and pilots. And so we're not really going to consider them Spider-Man movies here for this ranking. We're just going to put it aside because, maybe we should just do a whole podcast for, that version of the
I think perfection needs its own, time to shine. And honestly, we don't want to put that amongst these lowly movies that came out in the 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, come on, it's just like, a couple $1 billion here and there. I mean, like, what's that, But anyways, we are going to be looking at the 8 Spider-Man movies that have been released, all the way from beginning with Tobey Maguire to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And obviously, Spider-Man Far From Home, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, that is the most recent one. Cool. So now we're going to start off in 8th place. Like, this is stone last. Like, this is bottom of the barrel Spider-Man. Like, when you are at your lowest point, you don't even want to put this movie on because it's going to give you like flashbacks of a horrible
I'm going to put a disclaimer here just because, I feel like even the worst Spider-Man film is still a Spider-Man film. Like, it's still worth watching.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. We can go with that. Let's just roll with that. But okay, now number 8. What is your worst Spider-Man movie?
All right. I don't think I'm alone in this one, but I gave it some thought, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 hits rock bottom for me.
Dude, no, come on. You're putting The Amazing Spider-Man 2 stone last, where we live in a world where Spider-Man 3 exists.
Okay,
Spider-Man 3.
Right. But look, Spider-Man 3 is right under it. Like, it's a small margin, but I'm sorry, Amazing Spider-Man 2 takes the cake for me.
Spoiler alert. Okay, all right. Take me through why The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst movie for you.
I think for a few reasons. Number one, it was just so much in so little time, and it just trying to do too much. From Jamie Foxx's performance, that was, let's say, unbelievably cheesy. It started off okay. Then it just kind of went a little bit haywire. And Jamie Foxx is an amazing actor. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, he is.
But for that role, it felt so forced. As well as, Green Goblin or getting his sort of half-assed story through Harry. It just seemed super rushed, especially such a big character. And it also doesn't seem to nail any tone in particular. It keeps shifting all the time. It doesn't really know what it is. It can't get a handle on it. And those are just sort of some of the reasons. I don't know how you feel about it.
Well, look, I mean, for me, with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I strongly believe it was too much story for, one single movie. I think that is probably the biggest complaints I have about it. There was a lot that was kind of forced into the movie. I kind of got a bit of the vibe of X-Men: The Last Stand as well there, where they just tried to rush too many characters in. Like, I know they were trying to launch a Sinister Six. That was like the big thing at Sony Pictures at the time, and they were trying to rush towards it. And I found with Amazing Spider-Man 2, as you're saying, it was like you had the arc for Electro, which was supposed to be like the main thing, and then you kind of try, squeeze in the Green Goblin at the same time, and then you also have like Rhino,
I don't even want to talk about that scene, man.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, the spoiler for that scene, the funniest was it was actually on the poster. Like, it's one of those things when you actually go through the net of like posters that like, you know, kind of like spoil the movie, like Amazing Spider-Man 2 is out there. But I strongly believe that, you know, it was one of those projects where you can see that I think with some editing and possibly, you know, with a little bit more time, you know, I think a director had, like Mark Webb is a good director. I mean, I think we've seen that he's able to do things. But I believe that, you know, he was almost forced into creating too much in one single movie. And that for me, I think, is the biggest problem. I mean, there's still some really good parts in a movie. I mean, I still think, you know, Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker's, like, you know,
their
relationship
chemistry,
is super strong.
The chemistry is solid. I'll give it that. That's really good.
And I mean, dude, like her death scene, you know, where he's reaching out to her, it's such an emotional like blow. Like when you see him like stretching out, and even, you know, like I know some people didn't like where the web like turns into almost like his little hand, but it's just like it's such a moment, and when you feel like you actually feel his trauma, like, you know, like he's just lost her. And that for me is like, you know, there's some really good moments in the movie, but I understand it's like it is a little bit too much, like crammed into one. But for me, I had it in second last place because for me, Spider-Man 3 is still, man, I don't know. Like, you know, some people say like, you know, the 2015 Fantastic Four movie is like one of the worst comic book movies. I still say Spider-Man 3 takes the cake, dude.
I think with Spider-Man 3, dude, why are you giving so much hate? Like, okay, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say Venom is painfully mishandled, right?
Venom is like the worst thing in that movie. Like, I cannot explain to you, like, as somebody, I mean, I grew up in the 90s watching the animated series and like reading like, you know, all the comic books with Venom, and, you know, Maximum Carnage is like one of my favorite Spider-Man stories, and the video game, it's like, it's still something that's important to me today. So I know Venom is this like hulking creature that's like, you know, a serious threat. And I don't think Topher Grace is like a bad actor. And I mean, even when I first found out he was cast as Venom, I was like, oh, okay, this could be quite interesting. But just the special effects, like, okay, special effects, some parts are okay, other parts are not. But I just found that Venom was like you know, he was basically shooting to the movie. You know? It was like they shoehorned him in effectively. That's what they did. And it was, you know, you've got the Sandman, you've got you know, Harry as the new Goblin effectively. Then you've also got you know, Venom, and then you're also trying to introduce Gwen Stacy at the same time in the same movie. That movie, I still think, is a little bit more, you know, packed with characters than the Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I just found that it was, I don't know. I mean, you know, you kind of look at the first two Spider-Man movies and you think just like, okay, wow, this is cool. This is, you know, it treats its audience with respect. And this one just degenerated into like, I mean, it's just like, let's cram as much crap as possible into it. And you know what? And just give it to the audience and they'll eat it up. And I mean, I know it made a lot of money and I know it did really well. But I'll never forget, like, I mean, as a Spider-Man fan, I actually went to the cinema at that stage, and I went to a really early show because I was like so excited for it. I mean, Venom and, you know, the symbiote costume, and I was like, okay, I want to watch this. You know, this is everything as a Spider-Man fan you could want. And I walked out actually thinking to myself, like, what the actual did I watch? Like, honestly, I was like, it was like one of the worst experiences as like a movie fan coming out. And I mean, I defend crap. I mean, like, let's be honest, I defend a lot of stuff which, I mean, a lot of people hate, and they might be right, but that's inexcusable.
Undefendable.
That was just rubbish. Yeah, it's like that's.
I think with Spider-Man 3, right? Just like the Amazing Spider-Man 2 had its moments. For me, Spider-Man 3 had some kick-ass moments, you know, in and amongst being crammed, and some of those were, I think, the one you have to admit, there was that scene with, I think, Harry throwing a grenade at Peter and him just yoinking it back into his face, and it was the most badass thing. Like I thought at the moment, that and the black suit. I still think the black suit is super cool. Even though, like, unpopular opinion, the dance scene where MJ's in the, you know, that dance scene where MJ's in the bar and he's just trying to, you know, I kind of like
emo Peter Parker.
I kind of like that scene. It's messed up, but I kind of like that scene.
You see, it's watching it back now, like I understand it a little bit more, you know, like, and I can agree with you there that it's like, it's not as bad. I mean, it's become like a meme, so at the same time you kind of appreciate it a little bit more. But I just found that, you know, Peter's supposed to be corrupted by the symbiote. You know, that's the whole purpose, and the symbiote is supposed to, you know, bring out the worst in him. And like there, he just becomes like, you know, like a little douche, basically. It's like, it's not really like, this is not evil Peter Parker. It's just, he becomes a little bit, it's like, it's pretty much like meeting any dude that you will at Billy the Bums and Four Ways. That's effectively what he becomes. And like, for me, that was just a little bit over the top, like the way they positioned it. Like, I couldn't take it seriously. I just found that they could have treated it with a little bit more respect. And I mean, I know the director, like, he was completely against Venom. He didn't want to introduce Venom because he felt that it wouldn't fit into his vision of the character. And I get it. Like, he was the character was forced upon him by the studio, and
this is the problem when studio gets involved with creative vision, man.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, obviously this leads to the number 7, and we've swapped places here.
Okay, we've swapped places. So yours is then Amazing.
Yeah, this is Amazing Spider-Man 2 for me.
Before we move on from that, because we've just spoken about it, right? One thing I think that's really important to note, and I think was one of my biggest gripes with this movie, is not just the amount of characters, but the amount of story trying to be told. So, unlike other Peter Parker stories, this one really tried to make his parents a center stage. Like, this whole corporate espionage, at least in the first movie. And a bit in the second. And it's like he takes on this Bruce Wayne kind of role with like his parents being so like mysterious and whatever. And that kind of, for me, takes away from the core reason why Spider-Man is Spider-Man. Because he's not special. He's just a regular kid. He's just a dude. And he's supposed to be like the most relatable. And for me, that kind of takes away from him.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think with Ultimate Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, but I'm actually getting onto that point, it borrowed a little bit from Ultimate Spider-Man in the sense that it wanted to retell the Spider-Man story a bit more different than the first, 3 movies. They essentially wanted to go in a different direction. I mean, there are like certain storylines in the comics where his parents
for sure.
are like, they've got that, and I get that, and I understand your point as well. At the same time, it's like, do we really need like more family drama? Like, this is Spider-Man. It's not Days of Our Lives here. He's already like hung up about Uncle Ben. Now he's going to be hung up about his parents. I mean, geez, poor dude is like, I don't even know how he gets out of bed in the morning. Then one puts on a superhero suit. But yeah, I get you. I mean, that is something which I can agree on, that it was a little bit excessive. And I mean, maybe that should have been something that should have been kept for future movies.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree.
Okay, cool. So then let's move on then to number 6.
Right, what have you got?
I have the original Spider-Man movie.
Sacrilege.
Spider-Man.
Sacrilege. Yeah. That one above Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes. Look,
okay, now we good.
I'm gonna put this out there. I think Tobey Maguire is a good actor.
Right.
But I think he's a terrible Spider-Man. Like, for me, he's just like, he's at the bottom of like all the Spider-Man actors.
Okay.
And it's not because I think the Spider-Man movies were bad per se, except for Spider-Man 3, which I will say to my deathbed. But I just find that, his Spider-Man, like, there was something missing. I just found that, it's like when you say, Spider-Man is a little bit nerdy and he's a little bit geeky and whatever. I find that Tobey Maguire is that, he's kind of like that internet troll on Twitter that knows everything like on film Twitter. Like, he's almost like, he's so nerdy and so geeky that you can't help but think, oh, what a nerdy douche.
Yeah.
That is effectively what I thought.
I think Peter was supposed to be that nerd, right? Like from the original comics from back in the DZ.
Yeah, but he wasn't supposed to be like an annoying dork, basically. Like that's the point. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, for me, that is the way I viewed it. And the first Spider-Man movie, like when it came out, it did a lot of cool stuff. I mean, I think Willem Dafoe as the Goblin is one of the best castings I've ever seen. And I think he was amazing. But at the same time, like, I watched the movie recently and it has not aged well at all. You can spot like mics at the top of the screen.
No.
You can spot like, dude, like seriously, like, mistakes, like, when he's climbing up the wall, you can actually see the way that the clothes are hanging, that it actually shows that, he's
parallel to the ground. Oh, man.
Well, basically. So you can just see that it's not. So there's a lot of like little mistakes there, which, I mean, okay, fair enough. It was like the early 2000s, but at the same time, they kind of are a little bit jarring. You kind of look at it and think to yourself, come on, guys, they spend lots of money on this movie, and it's like, can you just not fix that stuff? And for me, that was one of the things that I just found it was a little bit. I just don't think the movie has aged as well as some of the others, and that for me is why
I will admit that like Maguire's Spidey, looking back and watching them again recently, Spider-Man has a lot of quips, and his quips, they come off a little bit awkward. Like, I don't know if it's just because he's awkward, but they do come off a bit awkward, and I'm like, shame, man, but he's trying. And so,
dude,
yeah.
Like, I played like the Spider-Man games like on PlayStation back in the day, and they used to have like the actor like Tobey Maguire, obviously like doing the voice and stuff, and he would try and make his little quips as well, like I'm gonna get you, Gab. I'm like, I actually had to mute it. I muted the games. I used to like put on like whatever in the background. If it was like Slipknot, Metallica, I'm like, I cannot listen to this guy. Like, I hate this game.
Oh, dude.
And like that is what I felt like, because he just did not have that charm or that like delivery to make you think, oh cool, this guy sounds funny or whatever. He just, like I said, he's just, it was a little bit too much of a try hard. Like that's the way I felt.
Sure,
And,
strong feelings, man. Poor Maguire. I hope he's not listening to this podcast. He's gonna cry again.
No, look, Toby, I like you as an actor, dude. Like, seriously, you're a great actor. I just did not enjoy Spider-Man. That's all. I think he's a really good actor. I mean, Pleasantville is like one of the best like roles of his that I've seen him in, and I thought he was fantastic in that movie. And I've seen him in like a couple other movies as well, where he's been really good. But just, his Spider-Man did not land for me. That is
okay. Fair. And I think for me, I struggle to tell whether I like it because I like it or if it's the nostalgia effect of my childhood. The cafeteria scene, punching Flash Thompson, all of that, just like landing like, oh yes, the good old days. It was just so excited to see Spider-Man come to life for the first time. So I don't know if that's playing on me, but it's definitely not that low in the list for me.
Okay, so what is your number 6?
It's Amazing Spider-Man, and I feel bad because now it feels like I'm picking on Garfield, and
okay.
The reality is like, I think it comes to a few small things. It's that Dr. Connor's like the main villain just kind of felt flat. I don't know. They kind of try to make him relatable, but he really wasn't. And he felt like this crazed, obsessive scientist from the start. It never felt like you wanted to tie in or he made you feel something from his perspective, like maybe Sandman did. Sandman did a great job with that in Spider-Man 3, but this one, not really. And look, I'll give Garfield the benefit that he brought a lot of life to Peter Parker in contrast to Tobey. And he's definitely the most confident Peter we've ever seen, but almost way too cool. Like, he's supposed to be a nerd. I'm sorry. He's like the coolest guy I've ever seen. And I'm just like, dude, skateboarding, rocking around. I was like, you're not Peter Parker. You're way too cool for Peter Parker. But brilliant actor. But that's why I'll get to my favorite Spider-Man a little bit later. But I mean, you can guess.
Okay, fair enough. I'll keep my thoughts for Amazing Spider-Man then.
Okay.
For a future like reference, but okay, I hear you. I hear you. But so let's now go into, we are now number 5.
Let's see if we agree on this one.
Okay, and the 5th place, I have Spider-Man Far From Home.
Far From Home. Yeah, that's me as well.
Same as well. Okay, but you see, the thing is, it's like, it's very difficult because I don't dislike this movie.
Same.
I actually really enjoyed it. Like, I went to go watch it a couple of days before it was released. Got invited to a premiere, which was really cool, and it was cool. Like, I enjoyed it. Like, it had a lot of great elements.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoyed Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, and I mean, I enjoyed the whole thing about them going around the world. And I found it like there was a lot of references, and a lot of times I thought, hey, this feels like a Spider-Man comic book, like especially a Mysterio fight scene.
Dude, Mysterio's great.
With the mirrors, and and suddenly Peter Parker, Spider-Man, they're basically falling into like these traps, but they're not real traps. They're actually just illusions. And I thought it was really cool. And I really like Mysterio as a character as well. He's just one of my favorite like Spider-Man villains, and I thought it was really great how they positioned it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, at the same time, I think maybe it just didn't do anything else to stand out. If you get what I'm saying.
Sorry, you were saying?
No, go ahead.
I think for me, the biggest thing was the worry about how much Tony Stark was going to be taking over this movie and his impact. Spoilers if you haven't seen the end of Infinity War and all that saga. But
welcome to 2020.
Welcome to 2020. Things only get worse.
Yeah.
But because it built so much on the end of that and a world without Tony Stark, I thought it's going to hinge on it a bit too much. It's not letting him be him. But, surprisingly, I found that it made way for a very meaningful story for him to be able to tackle his self-doubts. What kind of shoes can he fill? And is it the same shoes, or is he creating his own identity? And I think that whole story landed well. Jake Gyllenhaal played Mysterio, and he was brilliant. I think some of the best scenes came from him. It's definitely not perfect in that there is something it's difficult to put your finger on that seems a little bit... not disjointed, just kind of, I don't know, it's lacking a bit of something. I don't know if it doesn't give the secondary characters enough time to grow. I don't know if it's a little bit like MJ could have featured a little more. I don't know, but there's something that's not quite completely hitting the mark for me.
Yeah, I think for me as well, what I find with Far From Home is that, I understand like the MCU version of Spider-Man, they wanted him to have closer ties to Tony Stark, obviously, and, to see him as a sort of like a mentor figure. And I got behind that in, obviously Spider-Man Homecoming and the Avengers and stuff, but I kind of found a little bit, in Far From Home, they were leaning too much in it. Like, he's really broken up about his mentor passing and stuff. And at the same time, I'm thinking, where the hell is Uncle Ben? I mean, you were related to Uncle Ben. Like, this dude took you in.
They refused. They were done with Uncle Ben at this stage. They were like, no, it's done. It's finished. I think they brought him in for a short amount of time. Like, they referenced him, but not much more than that.
But that's the thing. It's like, he's just so hung up about Tony Stark. And, fair enough. It's like he's a mentor and, he wants to be like him and he identifies with him. And, I get that. But it just, for me, it just feels like, they lean too much into the Tony Stark element. Like, they were just like, hey, we got Spider-Man, but, he ties into MCU. So make sure, look at this, here's Tony. And, with Happy Hogan being in it. I just found, I think maybe that is what put me off a little bit. I'm like, you know what? Spider-Man is a cool enough character on his own. So why don't we just let him shine a little bit? He doesn't need to be, you don't need the Avengers to boost him.
And I think this is what a lot of people, like you're saying, a lot of people had the same feeling.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, okay, Far From Home, it's cool. So now we are 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay, we are number 4 now. So what was your number 4?
It was the original Spider-Man. Number 1.
The original Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire. I know you don't agree, but that was my number 4.
Okay, all right. Okay, justified. Convince me. Change my mind.
Again, nostalgia. But no. The thing is, look, I think as an entry into the series, it's such a good foundation to start building Peter. Yes, he's that introverted nerd. He's kind of like cookie cutter coming out of the comic books. And there was just nothing too complicated about the story. There was nothing like difficult to follow, nothing you had to know beforehand. I think for a lot of people, that was their first experience with Spider-Man, really. Many people who didn't really read any comics. And for me, that was mine as a kid, really. I mean, I knew of the cartoons, but it's my first proper blockbuster. And I don't know, it just kind of set the tone pretty well. And I think gave me a good idea of who Peter is. I think all in all, it's pretty good. The graphics were good for what they were. I mean, how old is this movie now? Despite the mics.
It's like 18 years old, I think.
Despite the mic drops in between the tops of the screen. And not perfect, but it holds a special place in my heart. And again, I don't know if the nostalgia ranks it up a little bit. It's hard to tell. We're human beings.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I've actually included Spider-Man Homecoming.
Oh, okay.
And for a while, actually, I mean, and I think I probably would have written an article like when it did come out. And I know it's not going to age well, and I know like somebody's going to at me at Twitter and say, oh, like whatever, you keep changing your mind. Like at the time, I was convinced that it was the best version of Spider-Man that I'd seen. Like that was because I just got sucked into it. Like, to be honest, I found it really captured the high school elements of Spider-Man better than any of the other 100%. Movies did. I mean, Tobey Maguire was about 35 when he was cast as Peter Parker, I'm sure. And, Andrew Garfield was probably about 34. And here's Tom Holland, who actually, he was 20, but I think he was 20.
He still has a baby face, though.
But like the kids, they actually look like kids, a lot of them. They were really young actors. They were, and they were believable as teenagers. It's not like this whole, the whole gag that you have on like the likes of Gossip Girl and the OC, where all those characters are like 45, pretending to be 15-year-olds. And this is what I found was really, really cool. Just that they brought in that high school element. There was the Vulture as well, which I thought Michael Keaton was amazing as the Vulture.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the twist as well that they brought in, was really cool, towards the end about, the Michael Keaton, Vulture is actually, the dad, and that was, I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, Homecoming is probably in fourth place now, because at the same time, like when that movie came out, I thought it was probably one of the weakest superhero movies of that year. So that's the thing. I thought, oh, this is probably one of the better Spider-Man movies, but I thought everything else actually feels a lot better. Yeah. And now with a little bit of hindsight and thinking, I'm like, it's still cool. Like, I mean, I still watch it from time to time, but I don't think it's up there. Like, I think it's it's a cool movie to put on and to watch. It's kind of like the same way I feel about Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok, it's
when you
fun.
watched it the first time, you were like, this is the best thing I've ever seen, right?
Yeah, but then after a while you digest it, you're like, okay, it's cool, like sort of thing.
It's a bit of a novelty, and I think I felt the same way about this movie. It's still brilliant, and I still enjoyed it a lot. I think Tom Holland was, hands down the best person to cast for this. But I think I had the same reaction where it was like, I don't know, it was really good, but it wasn't the best. And I don't know if that's also because it was diluted a little within the MCU and he didn't get to shine on his own. But again, Michael Keaton as the Vulture, he was so relevant in the way that they worked him in from the MCU, and the results of what happened in New York and all that is very smart. And having him so intertwined in Peter's personal life was a genius move as well. So kudos, it's high up.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think they've done a good job of tying everything up together, and I think that's compliments definitely to the producers and the writers and the directors for speaking to each other, because God knows it never happens in the movie industry. Yeah. But it's like it's cohesive, basically. It makes sense, and I think that's what makes it stronger. But also, I tend to agree with you. There's something that, like I said, I still find with Spider-Man in the MCU, the one thing that's missing is that it's so reliant on the Avengers. It's so reliant on the whole Marvel Cinematic, shared universe concept. And I'm like, you know what? It's cool, but Spider-Man can live by himself.
We had this conversation with Batman, didn't we? As well.
Yeah, basically, it's the same thing. He's the same sort of character. He does Batman doesn't need a Justice League. He's got his own gallery of rogues and own side characters. And same Spider-Man. I think he can live without the others. But cool. All right. Okay. We can agree there. So that's like some good stuff coming. And now, number 3.
Wait, that was my number 3. What was your number 3?
Oh yeah, well you're okay. You're all right. Okay, so you just spoiled your number 3. That's Spider-Man Homecoming. Okay, oh sorry. Oh yes, it was yours. I'm getting confused there. All right, no. My number 3 is The Amazing Spider-Man.
Oh man, you ranked it high. Okay, now it's your turn to defend.
Okay, I heard your points about Andrew Garfield, that you think he's too cool, and honestly, I think he's the best actor that has played Spider-Man. I think Andrew Garfield, the fact that he's an award-winning actor. Okay. He's now taking on serious roles. I think as a pure actor, he's the best person. And I honestly believe he was too good for the Spider-Man.
No, he learned from his mistakes in Spider-Man, and I became a better actor.
No, for me, this guy was, I just thought, he looked like Spider-Man from the comic books. If you look at those 70s run, or you look even in the 80s, look at when Todd McFarlane was, actually doing the art for Spider-Man, you start noticing that he just looks like a character. And while I agree that, maybe some of the storyline, could have just leaned a little bit more in another direction, not just gone towards the past, and there could have been something a bit more fresh. I thought it was really well done with him, and I really like the fact that they explore the Gwen Stacy relationship first off, because most people just immediately go to MJ. They're like, oh yeah, the love story between MJ and Peter Parker, and here it was Gwen Stacy showed his first love, and it was a lot more accurate in that sense. And also, whilst you didn't like Dr. Connors and the Lizard, I found it was nicer to start off the first movie in the series with a different villain that we haven't seen before.
No, look, agreed. I think having the Lizard was fine. It's just, don't know if I liked the way they did it.
Yeah, look, some of the stuff wasn't, if you look at it now, you think to yourself, okay, it looks a little bit dicey, and special effects as well. But I just found that in terms of Spider-Man, it brought something new. And even with Captain Stacy as with Gwen's dad, being involved. I just found it had something a little bit more. And I thought the cast was really good. I mean, Sally Field as Aunt May. I mean, we also had Martin Sheen as Uncle Ben. You know, then obviously you've got Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. It was a
she
really,
was fantastic.
Really
Can I just, I don't think we mentioned how underrated like she was there, because Emma Stone really killed the Gwen Stacy role. That was like a high point, I must be honest, with those movies.
And the thing is, you can see that there's a natural chemistry between her and Andrew Garfield. And I mean, they were dating in real life as well. So I'm not actually sure if they met on the set or off set.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not keeping up with celeb gossip here. So, but they had a natural chemistry, and it came across on the screen. Like, you could just see when they were in scenes together, and they didn't look awkward. They didn't look like they didn't know what to do. And I just found that the human connection in the Spider-Man movies, in terms of the people interacting with each other, I just really enjoy that. And for me, that's why I think The Amazing Spider-Man is still a movie that I go back to and I say, hey, this is a really cool Spider-Man movie that I want to watch over and over again. And for me, Andrew Garfield is still the best actor to play Spider-Man. Okay. I'm sorry, Tobey, and I'm sorry.
I didn't think he was worse than Tobey. I just thought Tom Holland's better than both. But I think that's a fair defense. That's a fair defense.
I will say this about Tom Holland. I'm still on the fence for a certain reason. Is that I want to see him stand out, apart from the MCU. Yeah. Like, I want to see a proper Spider-Man story. I mean, I just watched The Devil All the Time today.
Oh, is it out already?
He's actually, it's out on Netflix today. And I just watched it, and his performance, I was like, this kid can act. Like, he can really act. And I mean, I've seen like one or two of his performances outside the MCU, but I haven't really paid attention. In this movie, I was like, this guy's good. And I'm thinking, okay, I just don't believe he's being given enough to show. Yeah. In the MCU movies and the Sony movies that are tied to the MCU, whatever that deal is they got there. But I believe that he actually deserves like a bigger opportunity to show what he can do as Spider-Man, because I just feel that the material is being given. It's like, like I say, it's a bit cookie cutter. I mean, that's what
I wonder if it's because they want to age him properly. They want to do like the whole from a kid. I wonder if the tone of the movies is going to mature with the character as well, especially moving into finally like a Venom or a Sinister Six kind of thing. That's what I'm hoping, because I'm enjoying the campy stuff for now, but obviously I don't think it can stay this way.
Yeah, I just find Spider-Man doesn't need to be dark. I mean, he's not Batman.
So true.
It's fine. The tone, I just find that sometimes it's, it feels like a lot of the jokes and a lot of the stuff is just, it's like, it's low-hanging fruit. I don't find there's a lot that's been challenged there. Like, I don't find that like the challenging movies, I don't find that they're trying to do something
subtle,
completely different. Yeah, it's just like it's bits and pieces of other movies put together.
Okay.
And I mean, it's like that running gag that Spider-Man: Homecoming should have actually been called Iron Man 4. So that's the way it is. Like, and I feel about it because it's true. It's like, so I hope now that Tony Stark is dead, that he actually has a chance at Peter Parker has a chance to stand on his own.
No, same.
But I mean, we'll see. But let's move on then to number 2, and I think we might be in agreement here.
Probably. What's yours?
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, sir. That's the one.
Okay. So shoot.
Right. A few words. Love and attention to detail. That's what the team did with this movie. I mean, not only is it a fantastic origin story for Miles, okay? It's packed with insane visuals, okay? It's like got flair with everything. Even though it's got a lot of characters, it somehow juggles them in a balanced way, which is shocking. It was my biggest fear for this movie, is that with all these spider characters, it was going to be too much. They juggled it.
Yeah.
Also, okay, fine. Miles is my favorite Spider-Man. Just putting that out there. But you know, character. I think they took the time to really highlight everything that makes Spider-Man great. It was a celebration of Spider-Man's existence, like as a whole. It offers Peter Parker a way to relearn the lessons of the past that in before, touching on the past movies, but in unexpected ways, like a mentor now. And I think that was what was cool, because it lets Miles become a teacher as well. They teach each other something. That whole relationship between the two was phenomenally done. So between that and the comic books and the Easter eggs, it was fantastic, whether you were new to it or whether whether you enjoyed picking up all the little things. It was like meta at the same time. Just incredible.
I agree with you. I mean, the thing is, the movie, just the design of it alone was fantastic. Like the different art styles they managed to combine and how they showcased things. I thought visually it was something novel, something new, and how they managed to capture like the different Spider-Man from the different universes as well, and just bring them all together and make it look great, and just the whole tone of it, as you say. And for me, I think the biggest thing that this movie successfully did, which was something when I first heard about it and I first heard that Miles was going to be the lead. I mean, we got to be realistic here. The average person on the street that doesn't read comics only knows one Spider-Man, which is Peter Parker. That's all they're familiar with. And I thought to myself, okay, how are they going to introduce a brand new character that also goes under the name Spider-Man? How are they going to introduce like a whole bunch of other characters as well? Like it could work, or it could fall flat on its face, because it's very difficult. I mean, like we've seen, people that are like, wait, there's another Spider-Man. I don't understand, when did this happen? Why isn't he called something else? And I just found that the way they managed to do that, and they turned Miles actually into an icon. Like now that suddenly you look at kids everywhere and they're not just thinking about Peter Parker, they want to be Miles Morales. And I think that is how successful the movie is. That it actually managed to capture it, and capture like the whole culture of Miles as well. His family, the dynamics between him and his uncle, Prowler. And the way they did it, I just thought was really well done. Like I say, the style of the movie, just everything, it gels. It's perfect, and the soundtrack as well. Everything.
Dude, the soundtrack. I didn't even mention that. There's so many like levels to this. Like we could go on forever. I just didn't want to. I mean, I would be surprised if this movie was used as a film study for like animators, writers, whatever. Like moving forward, because there's so much to draw out of it. I mean, I heard. I don't know how true this is, but I heard that they even changed the frame rate of Miles compared to Peter to like show like different things. It's like the attention to detail is insane.
Dude, it was so well done. And I think for me, like what I really like, one of the stories that came out of this movie that made me really appreciate it more is the fact that the guys behind it, like they were also involved in Solo, and they got fired from the Solo set, from Star Wars, because, and like that side there, they were like, no, they're changing Solo. They're trying to make it too funny and improvisation and stuff like that. And it was such a low point, for the directors there, like that. They basically kicked off a franchise like that, like Star Wars. And a lot of people obviously were taking jabs online, and then suddenly you just like knock everyone's socks off with this movie. They're involved. It was a big FU to Star Wars, effectively. Yeah. And I think it just made Star Wars, like especially the likes of Lucasfilm, look like the clowns that they are most of the time, because they keep interfering and not allowing visionary directors and filmmakers do what they want, and they just got no cohesiveness, and they let these guys go. And look at what they went and did. They created an Oscar award-winning film, and probably one of the most culturally relevant films in a long time. So for me,
and sorry, so do you think like films like this benefit from the fact that the expectation is kind of just nothing in particular, because it was something new and it was animated? I think people were excited for it, but couldn't really hold it to any standard. They just sat there and went, I hope it's going to be good. And, you didn't really have too much. So I think it's easier for it to beat expectations.
No, definitely. I mean, I think that you're right there. At the same time, I mean, the movie wasn't like a huge smash hit. Like it got released in December, and I mean, I think it got squashed by Aquaman, if I'm not mistaken, when it came out. But at the same time, it's like, what? I don't believe that money all the time is like actually defines how good a film really is. And I think the fact that, we are still talking about this movie nearly 2 years later, and we're still mentioning how incredible it is, and we can pick it apart, like everything we enjoyed effectively, like and point out everything we enjoyed, is testament to how really good it is. And I think that, the expectations might have been a little bit low, but they knocked it out the park. And now with a sequel, everyone is looking forward to it. It's not a case of, like, that we're not, that no one cares about it. You're going to see probably a sequel is going to be a lot more successful at the box office than what this one was. But anyways, even if it's not, I think they just made something really incredible. Into the Spider-Verse is just, it's amazing. It its spot. Simple. But now, we go to the number one, and there's only one movie here. So, I mean, come on. I mean...
Dude, it was between this and Spider-Verse, but I had to put this up. Like, I think, if you don't agree with this, it's okay, but it's got to be your top 3 at least.
It's Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2.
I mean, that's it. And again, not a fan of Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, but everything else about this movie is
so
fantastic.
good.
Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, I believe that was like a prototype of showing how well-rounded villains can be in comic book movies, because most of the time before that, they'd be like, I'm dastardly, I want to take over the world, that is kind of like, the way that they operated in most of these movies. And here you have a guy that, you feel something for him, you feel he's lost, he wants to change the world, and he has a tragic accident and it impacts him. And I just found that this was one of the better ones, and how it managed to capture the dynamic between obviously Peter and Harry as well, after Norman Osborn's death. I found that it was just so good. And also, again, like it went into a part of Peter Parker's history, which is like where he's struggling to balance his life as a hero and, as a boyfriend, as, basically to Aunt May, his relationship to Aunt May as well, as a friend to people. He's failing a lot of times, and it kind of shows that, it's a little bit difficult to juggle all these things. And I found it was one of the earliest superhero movies to actually tackle issues that now are pretty common, but it did it first.
I agree with you 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head on all the points that I said would make this movie great, which is, again, that Octavius is a fantastic villain. His motivations are genuine, they're personal, and they're relatable. That's what I thought Dr. Connors, in Amazing Spider-Man was lacking, was this. And also, like, I feel like if someone didn't watch a Spider-Man movie, and this is the only one that they watched, okay, it's the only one they need to watch, because it delivers the context to what Spider-Man's all about, and it's balancing the duality of being Spider-Man and being Peter Parker. That's what makes his character. And I think this movie, like, highlighted what the cost is of being Spider-Man, where he eventually kind of gives up, he throws it in the trash. It's the pressure of the dual life and how it threatens to, like, tear apart the fabric of all his relationships, like you mentioned.
I agree.
This movie isn't afraid to take its characters seriously, and it allows for these sort of intense moments, which are really, like, they have some gravity towards them. And then plus the train scene was pretty epic as well. So.
No, it was. Like I said, I just think that it became the template, like, the prototype of how a superhero movie can be much more than what it used to be. And I mean, that's not taking a jab at any of the other movies that, came before it, because there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I mean, like in the 90s, there was obviously, we had Batman Returns, and we had, Blade, and all those sort of things that were really cool. But I just found that this was the first one that actually, kind of said, okay, let's just peel it back a little bit more. Like, let's have a look at the person under the suit. Let's see what they go through. Let's see how difficult it actually is to balance that life, and how it actually can all fall apart, like, very easily.
That's it. That's number one. I think that's definitely the biggest point. That's, like, I think that's what people want to watch. They want to watch relatability. They want to see themselves, in the eyes of the actor, in the eyes of the story that's happening.
So there we go. It's Spider-Man 2 at number 1.
And I think, coming full circle, the actual number 1 is 1977 Spider-Man. Nicholas Hammond, Spider of the Funk. Do yourself a favor, if you do anything with this podcast, just go and watch the trailer, because it's aged like fine wine. I think I'm actually gonna watch it.
The thing is, like, like Spider-Man in the 70s, like, I watched a few of those things, like, actually quite recently, and it's not bad. Like, some of the stuff is pretty cool. Like, the costume, it's a little bit dicey, and you've obviously. What I found really sucked about it, though, was just that they weren't allowed to mention a lot of, like, the bigger characters. So you basically had Spider-Man interacting, like, with, like, ninjas, for example. Like, it was just like so random. It was like, why is it Spider-Man fighting ninjas and not, like, Doc Ock or, like, a Green Goblin? And that was the thing. But you know what? As a prototype for a 70s show, okay, it doesn't touch, like, what Batman 66 did, but it's pretty cool, to show, like, hey, you know what? They were thinking a little bit, like, hey, maybe let's put this character on TV versus, like, whatever.
Yeah, they're the pioneers. They took the hit. They did all the rough edges that we learned from.
Exactly. So I mean, that's the thing. But Loïs, thanks again for joining me.
Thank you.
It's been real. We've had a good time. And now to the listeners, thanks again, guys, for tuning into the podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and the great support we've gotten so far. It's been really, really cool. And yeah, we're always open to new ideas of topics that you would like to hear us talk about. So just, drop a comment down below, or find us on Facebook, or just harass Jared at his house. I'll put his I'll put his address and his telephone number in the comment section.
Sick.
And then you can just, go tell the editor of Fortress, hey, I want you to do this, whatever. Okay, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But yeah. So everyone, thanks again for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for some more cool videos and podcasts, and see you next time.